and he was publicly executed. I want to make that clear. Charlie Kirk was publicly executed before the world. And as we are all searching for answers, the ones that are being supplied to us are not making a lot of sense. And some people, I would say, are speaking too much, are speaking on behalf of other people.
Secret DNA results Charlie Kirk allegedly ordered on his own kids could burn Turning Point USA to the ground. And Candace Owens says his wife Erika is leading the cover-up. We are not talking about a vague internet rumor. We are talking about a specific claim that, in the final stretch before his September 10th tragedy at Utah Valley University, Charlie quietly sent samples for testing because he no longer felt sure about what was happening inside his own home. Sources aligned with Candace frame it as the moment everything snapped, hinting that when those results came back, they did not match what Charlie had been publicly projecting as the perfect young family. And from that point on, every move Erika made, every press appearance, every promotion inside Turning Point USA started to look less like grief and more like crisis management. Right now, Candace Owens is positioning herself as the lone person willing to say out loud what insiders claim has been whispered behind closed doors since early September 2025. We have the on-record reality that Charlie was gunned down on September 10th while speaking to students at Utah Valley University, with 22-year-old Tyler Robinson charged and a national audience watching the fallout unfold across conservative media. We also have Candace, using her Candace podcast and subsequent commentary, pushing beyond the official story, adding that Charlie had allegedly confided a plan to get a secret DNA test done on his children, and that he saw those results in the weeks before he stepped on that Utah stage. According to people familiar with Candace's inner circle, those results are what she now calls the bomb that could shred the Turning Point empire if they ever surface.
Whenever the authority says something and not prod any further, we can't allow that to happen here. I won't allow that to happen here because this something terrible has traumatized the world, okay? And I feel as though when it comes to this, the media, the government, the talking heads, everyone is confusing us about what actually took place with
The contradiction hits immediately when we look at who Charlie trusted on paper versus who he may have doubted in private. Publicly, he had built Turning Point USA into one of the most influential conservative youth organizations in America, drawing thousands to conferences and earning praise from Donald Trump, who later awarded him the Presidential Medal of Freedom posthumously at the White House in October 2025. After his passing, Erika stepped in almost instantly as CEO, giving emotional statements about carrying on his mission, posting about faith, legacy, and forgiveness, even telling mourners she forgave the young man accused of the shooting. Yet in the background, if Candace's claims are correct, Charlie had already questioned the most intimate foundation of that family narrative and processed the fallout alone. We can see how Candace builds her case by reaching back to April 2018, when Charlie texted her about vivid dreams of being taken out because of his work with Turning Point USA.
And I want to be very clear that I believe, in fact, I know that towards the end, Charlie was fighting for custody of himself. I want to say that. I want to say that plainly, and there are lies that are being told and they need to be slapped down right now.
In those messages, which he shared publicly, he compared himself to Moses and said he might not see this whole thing through, describing recurring visions of being wiped out. Conservative outlets have already covered those texts as eerie prophecy, especially after he was shot with a single bullet at Utah Valley University and pronounced gone shortly after. Candace now reframes those same messages as more than general fear of political violence. Insiders say she privately connects them to a broader sense that Charlie's real danger might be coming from inside his own camp, long before any DNA kit entered the story. Meanwhile, the war line is drawn clearly. Candace on one side, Erika and the Turning Point leadership on the other. On September 21st, as Trump and high-profile figures like J.D. Vance took the stage at Charlie's memorial, Candace was notably not there, later revealing she had not been invited to speak, despite years as his communications director and self-described best friend. Former Turning Point board member Eric Bowling publicly suggested that Charlie had distanced himself from her because her theories went too far down the rabbit holes, painting her as someone the organization had quietly sidelined. Candace responded days later on her show, accusing Turning Point executives of working on a narrative to erase her role and discredit her questions about what really happened on September 10th.
Toast. But she didn't call for war. Erika did not call for war. In fact, she did the exact opposite, which is what was so stunning. It was unbelievable. The forgiveness that she granted, the strength that it took for her to call for that forgiveness, it's just unmatched, and it really made a difference. And I was being serious when I tweeted that I think it was the most consequential speech in American history.
From that point, the legal and public relations clash escalated. According to Candace's own account, Erika went so far as to write directly to the judge overseeing the case, urging a restraining order that would limit what Candace could say about the investigation and about Charlie's final months. Legal sources close to Turning Point describe this as a necessary step to protect an ongoing case and shield the widow and staff from defamation. But to Candace and her supporters, it looked like something else entirely. They interpret it as the moment a grieving spouse crossed the line into full-scale image control, using courts and potential lawsuits to keep one person away from sensitive details. On social media, Candace has not softened her language.
All right, you guys, we're going to jump right into this with no introduction. There's a lot that I would like to speak with you guys about. Can't wait to hear your feedback. A lot of lies that are being put out there, narratives that I would say are half-truths or just misrepresentations entirely.
She said that what she learned in one recent week was enough to bring down the system, and then dropped the line that turned this story from conspiracy chatter into a targeted accusation. Charlie, she said, was betrayed by everyone. Followers seized on that phrase, reading it as code for everyone, including Erika, and the comment sections under her clips filled with demands that she release receipts. One viral comment with thousands of likes crystallized the mood, urging her to let the truth burn if it was strong enough to destroy reputations. And that sentiment has since become a rallying cry for viewers who see Candace as the last person refusing to sign off on the official narrative. At the same time, Erika's behavior since September has given both her defenders and her critics plenty of material. Within days of Charlie's passing, she appeared alongside Trump at the White House to accept the Presidential Medal of Freedom on his behalf, then took the CEO job at Turning Point USA and vowed publicly to keep his mission alive. In an emotional live stream, she warned evildoers that they had unleashed a new fire in her and promised that the cries of the widow would echo around the world. Her supporters see a woman leaning on faith and purpose to survive unimaginable loss. Candace and some former staffers, however, describe it as a carefully scripted transition in which Erika turned a tragedy into the launchpad for her own national platform.
So much in the last 2 years, and I finally feel free because they can't take anything from me because I own everything. And I understand his message so much more now than when it was all happening. And that's why you need to have people that are brave, because it inspires you to be brave when the world is coming down on you, when the matrix is coming down on you for telling the truth. It commits you further to screaming it. And I really don't think.
We also have the way Erika interacts with the inner circle figures now under scrutiny. One flashpoint is Mikey McCoy, Charlie's right-hand man and chief of staff, who appears in video footage moments after the Utah shooting, with his phone pressed to his ear as panic erupts around him. Two lesser-known content creators posted breakdowns suggesting his reaction looked too calm, and that he was on the phone too fast. And Candace amplified those suspicions on her show, saying there was no dialing, and that when she later questioned him about the call, he did not respond. Andrew Calvett, executive producer of The Charlie Kirk Show, hit back publicly, calling the attacks on McCoy extremely disgusting, and insisting that Mikey simply phoned Erika and then his own father in a state of shock. But the clip has already become part of the internet puzzle Candace's audience is trying to solve. Then we reach the second flashpoint, Erika's onstage embrace with U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance at a Turning Point USA event at the University of Mississippi on October 29, 2025. 7 weeks after Charlie's passing, Erika opened the gathering by noting the timeline and telling the crowd that no one would ever replace her husband, but that she did see some similarities between him and Vance. When the vice president walked on stage, cameras caught him placing his hands around her waist while she briefly ran her fingers through his hair, a moment that immediately went viral. Commentators and activists, including New York Times author Shannon Watts, speculated openly about their chemistry, with Watts even predicting in a widely shared post that Vance would announce a divorce and marry Erika by the end of 2026, a claim Vance's camp has not dignified with direct comment. Erika tried to redirect the narrative in a Fox News interview with Jesse Waters, her first extended sit-down since the hug controversy, by focusing on transparency in the upcoming trial of Tyler Robinson. She pushed back hard against the defense request to keep cameras out of the courtroom, arguing that there had been cameras on her husband when he was attacked, on her family while they mourned, and on her every expression since. She said she had reviewed the investigative file and that the public deserved to see the evidence and true evil behind the attack, insisting there was nothing to hide and that open coverage could impact generations to come. To many viewers, that sounded like a straightforward call for openness. To Candace, it sounded like selective transparency that conveniently stopped at the questions she was raising. Candace's counterpoint is simple and sharp. If Erika truly wants everything on display, why is she, according to Candace, so quick to endorse a version of events that leaves obvious gaps unexplained?
For information, to research, and to investigate, and nothing is making sense. Now, it could not be making sense because we've not arrived at the conclusion. The FBI, I will say, has recently come out and said they're looking for another person. Good. because what we have so far obviously cannot be it. I feel
Supporters of Candace point to unresolved issues, like the still unreleased full autopsy report, the early online chatter about bullet casings with handwritten markings that quietly vanished from discussion once experts questioned whether that much writing could fit, and the lack of a comprehensive public timeline from Turning Point USA itself. In their eyes, Erika is embracing cameras and national interviews only when they reinforce the official investigation, while resisting any deeper probe into internal disputes, staff dynamics, and Charlie's alleged private decisions, including that DNA test. Adding to the tension, former staff and volunteers have begun sharing anonymous accounts with independent creators and with Candace's team, describing a noticeable shift in the office atmosphere in the month before September 10th. One former employee says Charlie had grown wary and less trusting of people who once had open access. A volunteer recalls him appearing emotionally drained and hinting that not everyone around him shared his priorities. These stories, impossible to verify fully from the outside, suddenly gained weight when matched against the 2018 texts in which Charlie spoke about prophetic feelings of being targeted and not surviving the revolution he was helping lead.
You get some kid who has a boyfriend who's a furry, and you talk to him on Discord. I think he's a furry. I don't want to disrespect.
I don't know if that's a real thing.
His boyfriend's definitely a guy who became a girl.
And wears furry stuff.
I think they do furry or furry games, excuse me.
Behind those personal tensions sits a second layer of controversy involving Turning Point executive Tyler Boyer, sometimes misheard as Tyler Burr in online clips. Allegations amplified by commentators claim he helped shape leadership teams while facing unresolved accusations of inappropriate behavior with young male workers and murky ties to organizations in Ukraine, all of which his defenders strongly deny. Candace references these claims to argue that Charlie's circle was riddled with what she calls dark activities that would have made any rational person question both professional and personal loyalties. If, as she suggests, Charlie realized that some of the very people deciding who rose and fell inside the organization were hiding serious misconduct, then a secret DNA test starts to look, in her telling, like one more desperate attempt to verify something solid in a life full of moving targets. The backlash against Candace has been swift and organized, at least in her telling.
I watched my friend get shot in the neck. Yeah, that's what happened. I just want to say that he was publicly executed again before the world. The question is why, right?
Within days of her more aggressive streams, she describes receiving legal warnings, defamation threats, and informal reminders about agreements she may have signed while at Turning Point USA, all framed as efforts to keep her from speaking freely about staff, donors, and private conversations. Online, dozens of posts from Turning Point-aligned voices and conservative commentators portray her as unstable, hinting at postpartum struggles and accusing her of chasing clout off a friend's tragedy. The practical effect is clear. Every time the conversation drifts toward Charlie's alleged DNA fears or suspicions about Erika, it is pulled back toward debates over Candace's credibility and mental state instead. For viewers following the saga, the question becomes less about whether Candace is provocative — she has built an entire brand on that — and more about why this specific line of inquiry triggered such a coordinated pushback. No one disputes that Charlie was a polarizing figure, that his rhetoric on race, religion, and politics drew fierce critics and loyal supporters, or that he had powerful friends, from Trump to J.D. Vance, backing his rise. What is newer is the suggestion that, in the final weeks before Utah, he might have stood at the center of a much more personal crisis, looking at a set of lab results that rattled his trust in the family he posted about and the organization he built. And as Candace keeps hinting that the contents of that report are the real reason some people want her quiet, we are left hanging on the edge of the next question. If the DNA fears were real and the results truly were not what he expected, then what exactly did Erika and the Turning Point leadership think would happen the moment those numbers ever saw the light of day? But as we look at the way Erika moved in the hours and weeks after that campus tragedy, the quiet DNA question we mentioned earlier suddenly feels bigger than a private family doubt. It starts to look like the missing script behind everything that followed.
If you want people to lose all faith that anyone is going to solve anything, you add a bunch of, if you're going to guy, you had a bunch of other wacky that doesn't make any sense, and you spam it out there at the same time. You leave a gun that didn't do it out in the woods. You do a bunch of
We have that split screen in our minds. On one side, chaos in the arena, a single shot, students screaming. On the other, Mikey McCoy, Charlie's chief of staff, already peeling away from the scene, phone pressed to his ear as if he had rehearsed the moment in his head 100 times. Critics freeze the frame and zoom in, asking the same thing Candace and her sources now whisper. How does a man have time to place a call that fast? No apparent dialing, no fumbling, straight to Erika. Insiders who claim to know the internal call logs insist that she was the first number reached, before law enforcement, before security, before anyone else. Supporters of Mikey rushed to call that reading irresponsible, pointing to the trauma of seeing a close friend collapse in front of thousands of people. Andrew Colvett, executive producer of The Charlie Kirk Show, publicly slammed the narrative that McCoy's reaction was too casual, calling it an extremely disgusting attack, and arguing that both men were in shock and barely remember those first minutes. He says Mikey recalls calling Erika and then his own father, Pastor Robert McCoy, and that nothing about those calls was coordinated. But for those replaying the clip in slow motion, that explanation raises its own question. If the first instinct was to reach the widow and then a pastor, does that look more like instinctive grief, or like making sure the right people control the story from the first seconds, long before any DNA bomb could leak? From there, the pattern watchers go straight to Erika's biggest viral moment, her embrace with Vice President J.D. Vance at the University of Mississippi on October 29th. 7 weeks after losing her husband, she walked on stage as the new Turning Point USA leader, counted the days since the campus shooting, and told the crowd that no one would ever replace Charlie, but that she saw some similarities between him and Vance. When he stepped into the spotlight, cameras caught him holding her by the waist while she reached up and threaded her fingers briefly through his hair, just long enough for social media to explode. Commentators, including New York Times writer Shannon Watts, fanned the flames by predicting online that Vance would end up divorced and married to Erika by the end of 2026, turning a single hug into a storyline about ambition, chemistry, and quiet emotional distance that might have started long before any lab result landed in Charlie's inbox. Erika, for her part, tried to redirect the beam. In her first in-depth sit-down with Fox News host Jesse Waters, she spoke not about whispers of new romance or old resentments, but about transparency in the upcoming trial of Tyler Robinson, the young man charged in the Utah shooting. She pointed out that there were cameras on her husband when he crumpled, cameras on her friends and family in their darkest days, cameras on her every smile and tear. And she asked why those cameras should suddenly vanish now that the accused is heading into court. Why not be transparent, she asked. There's nothing to hide. Let everyone see what true evil is. This could impact generations to come. It was a powerful argument, but it left one awkward gap. Transparency for the state's timeline and ballistic evidence, yet absolute quiet on the one piece of private evidence Candace keeps circling back to, the home testing that allegedly shattered Charlie's trust. That is where Turning Point's legal posture comes in, and where Candace's story shifts from grief to open warfare.
She really is just the moment. The speech that she gave, everybody was just wowed by her. I felt my energy personally, like last night going into that, I was effectively like soaring in the air above the convention center, like a dragon above, waiting for Erika to just be like, fire. And I was just gonna come down and swoop in out of nowhere. All the politicians, all the fake people, everyone was just gonna be in that moment.
According to her, Erika did not just roll her eyes at the conspiracy-heavy segments. She put pen to paper and reached straight into the legal system, asking a judge to put official limits on what Candace could say about the case and about the inner circle. Framed from Erika's camp, it looks like a necessary move to shield the family from reckless speculation. Told from Candace's side, it reads as something very different. The moment the widow became the gatekeeper, using restraining orders and potential defamation actions to silence the one person Charlie trusted enough to send prophetic late-night messages about sensing his own wipeout. Around them, familiar conservative names draw their own lines. Eric Bolling goes on a high-profile podcast and tells the world that Candace's theories always went a bit too far, that Turning Point considered her too extreme, and that there had not been a real communication pipeline between her and Charlie for years. That narrative would have closed the chapter neatly, if not for the screenshots and message histories Candace later paraded in front of her followers, showing 2018 texts where Charlie talked about dreaming of being taken out and comparing himself to Moses, who might never see the promised land. In her framing, those texts are not just creepy foreshadowing of a campus shooting. They are proof that, even as some board members painted her as a liability, Charlie was still confiding the darkest things to her, rather than to the people who now control his organization. And so, we end with the question that now hangs over Turning Point USA, like a storm cloud no rebrand can blow away. As Candace Owens fights almost completely alone, blocked from memorial stages, battling lawyers and PR teams, the DNA shadow only grows larger over Erika's new CEO era.
Like, the more they keep looking into it, the more they're like, this doesn't feel like a real... It feels super fabricated.
But here's the thing. Just like I was talking about when people are arguing on social media, it's all part of the plan. If you want...
Will those hidden results finally surface and torch the image of the perfect young family, splintering donors, staff, and political allies? Or will Will the machine around Charlie Kirk succeed in burying that last secret forever alongside him? What do you think really happened inside that marriage and that organization in the weeks before Utah? And do you believe the truth can still break through all this spin? Let us know in the comments. Stay sharp, stay questioning, and until next time, we are signing off with one simple promise. The cameras may look away, but we will be right here, watching who tries to script the ending.